Joining me from Washington is Negar Mortazavi. She's a journalist and political analyst and a senior fellow at the Center for International Policy. Negar, the question everyone is asking at this point is who was behind these back-to-back explosions?
Well, Asieh, we don't know yet, but there are some ideas as far as suspects. If we look at past patterns, there have been attacks by the Islamic State, ISIS, or Daesh in the past. Just last year, an attack on a Shia shrine in Iran that killed more than a dozen people. There had been an attack before that, a few years before that, at the parliament, the building of the parliament in Tehran. There was also a few years ago an attack in the city of Ahvaz. Similar setting. It was an IRGC parade with civilians watching that also claimed dozens of lives, many injured. So there have been past patterns either by groups, regional groups, Iran's regional enemies like ISIS, or also militant opposition groups like Arab separatists and other similar groups within the country who have claimed similar attacks. There's also, I see some serious analysts tying this possibly to the current war, the Israel-Hamas war. We know a senior IRGC commander was just assassinated by Israel in Syria. A senior Hamas commander was assassinated in Beirut. So some see this as an escalation in that war. It's still not clear, but I guess we're waiting to see who claims responsibility or for more clues.
And there are those who would like to see Iran dragged into a war here. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei is vowing that Iran will respond harshly. If Iran was to respond, Negar, what would it look like?
Well, I say there are two paths. It really depends on who takes responsibility or who Iran hunts down, as they have vowed to find the attackers. If this is tied to groups like ISIS, for example, then the response would be something completely separate from that Israel-Hamas war and that essentially regional theater that Iran has been fighting against ISIS. If this does tie back in any way into the Israel-Hamas conflict, and it's as some are putting it, an escalation with the double assassinations I mentioned, then the retaliation would look different. Although, as you said, there are forces that have been trying to essentially bring Iran into that regional war, the Israel-Hamas war. But I think Iran and its closest ally, the Hezbollah, the militant group in Lebanon, have been trying to not get pulled into an all-on war against Israel, which could then potentially bring the U.S. in or get it more involved. And so far from the responses, I don't see that message or signal coming from Tehran that they're gearing for a major escalation. But again, this really depends on who claims responsibility for today's attack.
And what about the impact, Negar, on Iran domestically, within Iran?
Well, this was a fairly unprecedented attack. Over 100 people killed, many more injured. Compared to the previous terrorist attacks I mentioned, the one last year claimed a little over a dozen lives. The one in Tehran, some less than 100 people killed. The one in Ahvaz was also deadly, but I believe this was even more. So it's a step up from previous similar terrorist attacks. And so I think the hunt for whoever the attacking group or groups is going to be more rigorous in Tehran. But at the same time, they have shown that they want to be careful and calculated attacks to not get pulled in directly into a confrontation with Israel and then potentially the United States.
Yeah, all right. We'll have to leave it there. Negar Mortazavi, thank you very much.